Ah, the devil. Some believe in the Prince of Darkness. No, not Ozzy, the other Prince of Darkness, and some do not. Many times, it's been said that the devil may appear in times of trouble to offer you a deal you can't refuse. Kinda like The Godfather. Oh, before we fall into some kind of weird personal encounters we've had on our own, check out these 5 darkest encounters people have had with the devil. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Squire Richard Cabell. This is a story about an evil squire and the hounds of hell. And over in the courtyard of Buckfastleigh Church in Buckfastleigh, Devon, lies the tomb of this supposedly evil guy who probably did a number of untold evil things and also probably terrified the villagers, but we'll get to that in a moment. Squire Cabell's body was interred in the graveyard in this altar tomb outside the south door to the ruined Church of Holy Trinity. Richard Cabell is recalled as an immoral person who murdered his wife, despite the fact she may have actually outlived him 14 years. But there's no smoke without fire, as they say, and so rumors fly about some of the terrible crimes he apparently committed. On the night of his burial, a pack of phantom hounds, who came from the depths of the moor to escort his soul to hell, bayed at his tomb, and have done so since on the anniversary of his death. But the interesting thing is the burial rites of the Anglo-Saxons back in those days. Recent excavations have demonstrated the existence of the foundations of a late Anglo-Saxon church associated with multiple generations of burials contained in wooden coffins with iron nails, and charcoal scattered in at least one of the graves investigated. Together, the evidence serves to indicate high-status late Anglo-Saxon mortuary practices. In turn, this is commensurate with Holy Trinity marking the original site of the monastery, known to have been in existence by AD 1018 and prior to its translation to the valley floor in the 12th century. But back to the evil guy. Those villagers really buried this guy, and there were probably a few church officials involved in the strategy to keep this guy down in his final resting place. His coffin was secured beneath a really heavy stone, over which they placed a solid altar tomb and enclosed it behind sturdy iron bars to prevent his escape. Their precautions, however, proved worthless. For on stormy nights, a ghostly pack of hellish hounds is often said to come baying around his tomb, whereupon the spirit of Squire Cabell appears and joins them for a ghostly hunt across the windswept moor. Sometimes it's said that a red glow can be seen emitting through the iron bars, and if you were ever so inclined, running around the tomb 7 times and sticking your hand through the iron bars will result in the squire or the devil himself biting your fingers. Number 4. The Legend of the Evil Rider. Sometimes the man in black just needs to let everyone know who's temporarily in charge, or let it be known that someone's time is up, and it's then time to pay the price of your soul in full. Such is the story of the Devil's Great Thunderstorm, and the legend of the Evil Rider, which, by all accounts, sounds like the devil himself. Widecombe Church, which is sometimes called the Cathedral of the Moor, is dedicated to St. Pancras. It lies in a great hollow high up on the old forest of Dartmoor. Once, long ago in 1638, the church was shaken by a terrible thunderstorm, accompanied by the legend, of course. It was an October afternoon, and the congregation, terrified by the dreadful thunderstorm, gathered in the church seeking safety and comfort. The parson, unafraid, carried on with the sermon, seemingly untroubled by the falling masonry and the dangers of the terrible lightning which flashed terrifyingly across the heavens. Meanwhile, at the inn at Poundstock, the usual Sunday afternoon company was gathered exchanging the week's news and quenching their thirsts with the local cider. Suddenly, the sound of a horse's hooves was heard approaching the inn. The locals could tell by the sound, which seemed to ring eerily in the silence that had suddenly fallen on the countryside, that the horse was a stranger to the district and wondered who could be approaching. A frightened hush fell on the inn, the conversation stilled by an unaccountable feeling of unease. The locals looked at each other, each waiting for someone else to make the first move, until one, braver or more curious than the others, plucked up the courage to peer out through the window. he saw a tall, dark, commanding figure seated on a high coal-black horse which constantly snorted and pawed the ground impatiently, striking sparks with each movement. "Fetch me a flagon of cider," boomed the figure on the horse when he caught sight of the face at the window, "and quickly, for I have a terrible thirst." Meanwhile, the devil, for that's who it was obviously, had ridden on to Widecombe, where he tethered his steed to a pinnacle of the church tower. On peering into the church, he noticed that one of the congregation, a young boy, had fallen asleep during the service. This was his chance. Everyone knows that you mustn't fall asleep in church, or you're likely to fall into the hands of the devil. The devil swooped on the poor, unfortunate boy and, seizing him by the scruff of the neck, flew off with him up through the roof of the church to which his horse was tethered. Throwing his victim across the saddle, the devil mounted and rode off, breaking the pinnacle of the tower in his haste to make off with his prey. Inside the church, the startled congregation was shocked to see the pinnacle come crashing through the roof of the church to the accompaniment of a tremendous clap of thunder. Though many people were hurt, no one was killed, and no one ever found out what happened to the poor unfortunate boy who was never seen again. Number 3. Padre Pio. Though Satan and his demons rarely reveal themselves to ordinary people, when it comes to those who are strong in the Lord like the saints, demons apparently sometimes make open attacks. Born in the late 19th century, Saint Padre Pio lived and died in Italy, but was known and revered throughout the world when he died in 1968. A holy priest, miracle worker, and stigmatist, Saint Padre Pio was also regularly attacked by demons. According to Father Gabriel Amorth, a leading Vatican exorcist, quote, Padre Pio's real enemies were the demons who besieged him. The great and constant struggle of Padre Pio's life was with those enemies of God and human souls, the devils who tried to capture his soul. Even in his youth, Saint Padre Pio would enjoy incredible celestial visions but also suffer demonic attacks. Father Amorth explains, the devil would appear to him as an ugly black cat or in the shape of a truly repugnant animal. The obvious intent was to fill him with terror. Other times, demons came as young girls, nude and provocative, performing obscene dances to test the young priest's chastity. But Padre Pio sensed his greater danger when the devil tried to deceive him by taking on the form of one of his superiors, his provincial supervisor, or his spiritual director, or in a sacred form such as the Lord, the Virgin, or Saint Francis. This last tactic of the devil appearing as someone good and holy was a particular problem. Here's how Saint Padre Pio would discern a vision. He noticed a certain timidity when the Virgin or the Lord first appeared, followed by a sense of peace when the vision departed. On the other hand, a devil in sacred form provoked an immediate feeling of joy and attraction, replaced afterward by remorse and sadness. It is said that Satan would even sometimes attack Saint Padre Pio physically. He describes this in one letter he wrote to a priest confidant. These devils won't stop striking me, even making me fall down from the bed. They even tear off my shirt to beat me, but now they do not frighten me anymore. Jesus loves me. He often lifts me and places me back on the bed. Number 2. Devil's Sonata. This story is about an Italian violinist and composer by the name of Giuseppe Tartini, who was born in 1692. He was musically educated since an early age, but later he went to study law at the University of Padua, where he also learned to fence. However, his life would be turned upside down by the passing of his father, Gian Antonio Tartini. Following the death of his father, Tartini married a woman of whom his father disapproved because of her lower status. Apparently, another man, Cardinal Giorgio Cornaro, was also interested in the woman and charged Tartini with abduction. To escape prosecution, Tartini traveled away. He went to the monastery of St. Francis in Assisi where, with nothing much left to do, he turned to music and started playing the violin. Tartini was content with playing the violin until he heard Francesco Maria Veracini in 1716. He was fascinated by Veracini's playing and frustrated with his own. With the desire to master the violin, Tartini locked himself in a room and practiced until he and the violin didn't have any more secrets to share with each other. On a very interesting side note, Tartini appears to be the first known owner of a violin created by Antonio Stradivari in 1715, which he later gave to his student Salvini. It's the violin known as Lipinski Stradivarius, and it's the same violin on which Tartini composed the Sonata of the Devil. The sonata is notable for its technically difficult passages, originally lasting 15 minutes, and remains as Tartini's best-known composition. The story goes that in his dream, Tartini was asked by the devil to be his servant. When the lessons ended, Tartini asked the devil to play the violin himself. Tartini had never heard a more touching sound from a violin or a greater musical genius than the devil. Did Tartini make a deal with the devil who helped create this masterpiece of music? It would seem so. Number 1. Devil's SMS. Jump forward to modern times and you'll see that the devil's still around and tormenting priests and other do-gooders. A Polish Catholic priest says an evil spirit has taken over the body of a teenager and that the demon who has possessed the girl is sending him hateful text messages. This was after he had performed an exorcism on the girl. Father Marian Rachel from Jaroslaw says that the author of those texts is an evil spirit who has possessed her soul, and clearly this young girl has been possessed and needs further help. Rachel, who resides in a town in southeastern Poland, said the devil and his followers are not shy about using modern technology, and that in many circumstances their actions aren't identified as being the work of evil. Rachel said that one of the text messages read, "She will not come out of this hell. She's mine. Anyone who prays for her will die." The priest claims he responded to the girl that he would continue praying for her, and in return received the following reply. "Shut up, preacher! You cannot save yourself. Idiot! You pathetic old preacher." It's not known if the SMS messages were traced or who sent them, but surely someone has to know where they're coming from. Unless the devil uses a private number. Winky face. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top 5ers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, The Brilliant, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There will be a link in the description, so make sure you go check that out, as well as